And is joining us here, Matt Lombardo joining us here from the Fighting City of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
What's happening, Nestor?
You bring cheesesteaks? What? Pretzels?
Yeah, I brought some pretzels.
They have a cheesesteak joint right here in the mall selling Philly cheesesteak.
They said that it was America's premier Philly cheesesteak. Yeah. I call shenanigans. I have a rule, unless it's the Jersey Shore, I don't purchase a cheesesteak 50 miles outside of the city limits. So I certainly am not violating that rule in Minneapolis,
Are you
Minnesota.
with or without?
Without. Yes.
You got to ask that, right?
And by the way, that rule applies basically for crab cakes too.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Crab cakes and
Louisiana, you can get them down there. So,
yeah, I'm leery then.
We're all trying to get right here in Minnesota. I got a little bit of a dog in the hunt with the Eagles, as you know.
Yep.
Far be it from me, and Chris has known me. He's my first media friend, 1984, Chris Pica.
Nice.
Blog and tackle out on Twitter for those of you trying to keep up with the Pro Football Writers this week. And Matt, give your credentials to everybody with this is all your second Super Bowl, dude. I feel like I've known you longer than that.
Second in a row. I mean, we've kept in touch over politics and Springsteen and Ravens, Eagles, so we've known each other for a while. But last year was my first Super Bowl. This is certainly a completely different animal with the Eagles being here. And
a little bit more work, isn't it?
A little bit.
I mean, when your team gets here, it's awesome, but then you're like, oh, did that just happen?
It's crazy.
Right.
Is the parade over? Right.
And the legwork in terms of, pre-writing stuff to have up every morning and your features that you wrote in advance of this week, to get all that done before you even get here and immerse yourself into Radio Row and everything people are saying at Media Night tonight. I mean, that's a whole different level than anything we did last year. But I've covered the Eagles for the last 4 or 5 years for NJ.com. We connected a couple times when I did talk radio on 97.5 up there. And, here we are. The Eagles are in the Super Bowl, and I think they have a fighter's chance of winning it. And I think they match up pretty well against this New England Patriot team, as long as Tom Brady doesn't have the ball in his hands, trailing by, anything less than 7 or 8 with 3 minutes to go.
I had an occasion, along with Lucas, late into the evening on Sunday night, as we do drink here at the Super Bowl.
A little bit.
Don't tell anyone.
A little bit.
I missed that from last year.
We were out tipping elbows with certain members of the Eagles organization. And, once we got to like the third drink, I got kind of flippant and said, all right, dude, how are you going to win the game? And the answer was line of scrimmage, all line of scrimmage. That's how we've won these other games. Some thoughts about that, because, that is where the Patriots win, right? I mean, legitimately over 20 years, you can talk about Brady and this and that. Brady's still wearing the same pair of pants, or the tutu in this case, that he was issued 20 years. I mean, he doesn't get pushed around. And Manny, that's part of the deal. And you don't run the football on the New England Patriots historically over 20 years.
Right.
And the Eagles they think that they're going to go mano-a-mano like that.
Well, I think there are 2 reasons the Eagles are here. Number one, Doug Peterson and the system that he's put into place now around Nick Foles, and he's had malleable play calling every week, matchup dependent on who they're playing. He's not Chip Kelly sticking to a system. He's not, Andy Reid, who gets conservative in big moments, and we saw what happened with them against Tennessee. He's aggressive almost to a fault, but it's worked out, and here they are. But the marquee reason why I think the Eagles blew out the Vikings and why they're here for the Super Bowl is I think they have the best offensive line and best defensive line in football. I mean, you talk about all-pro Fletcher Cox and Tim Jernigan up the middle, getting that A-gap pressure on Brady. And Tom Brady's talked about it. Peyton Manning used to talk about it all the time. Pressure up the middle disrupts them in the pocket. They swarm off the edge with Brandon Graham and with Chris Long. They had 3 sacks on Matt Ryan. They sacked Keith Keenum twice. He threw 2 interceptions. They force a lot of turnovers, plus 11 turnover differential. And on the offensive side of the ball, they have the best offensive tackle in the league in Lane Johnson, an all-pro center in Jason Kelsey, and Stefan Wisniewski, since he's been back at left guard, he's played at a high level. Brandon Brooks is going to a Pro Bowl this year. So you win at the line of scrimmage in the postseason, and I think the Eagles are better equipped than anybody the Patriots have played in a long time of winning that battle and therefore winning the game.
Chris Pica joining us here, the voice of Matt Lombardo, NJ.com, and, of course, Luke riding shotgun off camera. All of our coverage this week brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank. Big appreciation for all that they do, a relentless commitment to be the best at everything they do. See them out at Howard Bank. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. They don't have Royal Farms up in Philly, but that's okay. We don't have chicken here. I'm telling my wife, bring me some fried chicken from Royal Farms out here. Maryland Jockey Club as well, and Laurel, where they're racing this weekend. We're going to have the entries up in the WNST morning newspaper as well. Chris, you've been to a bunch of these Super Bowls. This is his second Super Bowl here. I think every year we say, well, how many of these guys have experience of this? How many of those guys have experience of this? This is an Eagles team that has a little bit more experience with that. I think that is really a determining factor of there's nothing normal about this week, right?
No. Nothing normal about Sunday either.
Right.
not for us, for the media, for the fans, for the players, the hotel. I mean, we were in the Eagles hotel on Sunday night a week before. There's a SWAT team all around. I mean, it's a whole different level of, and I think it's great that they're both attached to the mall because they could probably walk around and have some semblance of sort of normal and 5-degree weather here. But this is a different kind of Super Bowl, I think, right?
Well, it's a neutral site, and it's supposed to be a little bit uncomfortable for both teams playing in the game. You know, the only time you see the field is the day before when you have the walkthrough. You get an hour on the field, and basically that's just more of a family hour with your kids and taking pictures and taking the team photo. So all of the work's done prior to that point, so you don't really get a chance to get a feel for what that facility is going to be like on game day. Things you're used to in your stadium, you know, where's the play clock for the quarterback? You know, things you're used to at home.
Functional stuff, yeah.
Functional stuff that you're, you know, locker rooms, all of that. And so you go out there, and it's supposed to be basically both teams somewhat uncomfortable. You get on the field and find out which team makes the adjustments and plays good for 60 minutes.
And even before you kick off, you have an hour and 10 minutes between when you leave the field for pregame warm-ups to when you're introduced to when the ball kicks off. Halftime,
29 minutes. It's 29 minutes start to finish.
Correct. It's usually 12 minutes during the regular season of playoffs, so it's double there.
Who's doing halftime this year?
Justin Timberlake. Apparently. But, you know, there's a lot of talk.
Bringing sexy back.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of talk in Philadelphia about the comparisons between this Super Bowl team and 2004. And I think back to that year, and I think what really got the Eagles, in addition to Spygate, it was the fact that they weren't prepared for the elongated pregame and the 29, 31-minute halftime, and it sucked the air out of the balloon. They couldn't get going in the start of the second half. But the Eagles have an advantage here. They have 7 guys who have won Super Bowl rings. Torrey Smith won a Super Bowl like 4 years ago. LeGarrette Blount, Chris Long, they both won a Super Bowl with the Patriots last season. So they've been through this, and they can kind of impart what it takes to be successful on Super Bowl Sunday, because it's not a normal game by any stretch of the imagination, to the rest of their teammates. And I think Doug Peterson has done a really nice job of drawing that experience out of the guys that have been here and kind of showing the rest of the team what it takes to survive that day and win the game.
Right, and you also talk about the fact there's 2 weeks in between. Yep. So you've broken down your opponent literally to the nth degree.
You should be ready to play right now.
Right. You should be ready to play right now.
When you get off the plane.
But sometimes what happens to rookie head coaches in this game is you start overthinking things. You start it's not a panic, but you get in a tight situation, kind of like what Atlanta faced last year. Suddenly you're doing things that isn't in your normal makeup in a game where during the regular season you know what you can control. And maybe Atlanta kind of got off the rails in that game, and suddenly you start overthinking. Oh my God, we got to.
We'll be examining that Atlanta thing forever, because that'll never happen.
Right. And then here's the thing about Doug Peterson: he's been aggressive all year. Nobody has gone for it more on 4th down. They've shown that they'll air it out, even with Nick Foles at quarterback. And you know, last week, what really struck me was you're up 24-7. It's 1st and 10. It's your first offensive possession of the second half. And for the first time all year, you dial up a flea flicker. I mean, what is that? I mean, right? So I don't think that Doug Peterson is a head coach that's going to be intimidated by Bill Belichick across the way. I don't think he's a guy that's going to change what's got him here. I don't think he's going to, morph into Andy Reid and try to salt out a victory. He's going to keep the pedal to the metal, which is really the fatal flaw
you have to do that.
Of Dan Quinn and the Patriots last year.
Right.
Or the Falcons, rather.
Right. You have to keep your foot on the opponent's throat all 60 minutes. And the times the times the Patriots didn't win the game, the first time when the Giants beat them, the Giants had a 10-minute drive right off the bat. They took a 1/6 of the game away from the Patriots and got a touchdown out of it and set a tone. And sometimes you have to do things like that, but it is a 60-minute. We talked about it. It's a cliche, but it's true.
Woo!
Once you get the lead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Cliche.
When I hear 60 minutes,
once you get the lead, you've got, and they proved it last week. The Vikings were not out of the game at halftime, and all of a sudden you've broken their backs one possession in the second half, and that was it. The ball game was over.
Chris Pica is blog and tackling our partner here at WNST.net, Matt Lombardo from NJ.com. Luke is here. It's all brought to you by Howard Bank, our legitimate sponsor here this week. Give me my hat and everything. Also brought to you by King Discount Liquors. Gave the King a ring for the big game. My wife picked up 3 bottles of Malbec. We're not even going to be there for the game. I hope she brings them out here to Minnesota. They'll be there when I get home next week as well. And if they were here, they'd be on ice because we're in Minnesota. Also brought to you by Fremont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Choose our friends Carl Delmont and Friedmont. Go to Fremont.com. Buying, selling, refinancing. Just get some education. They help you do that. Luke, I know you got a bunch of football stuff to go after with these guys.
Oh, man, I'm just curious. 8 weeks ago, Carson Wentz goes down. look, Nick Foles is not a complete unknown in this league.
Right.
This is a guy 4 or 5 years ago had a really, really impressive season coming out of nowhere. But how surprised are you by all of this? I mean, anyone who watched the Eagles' offense over the last couple weeks of the season, I know the games didn't mean a whole lot. I know they had sewn up the #1 seed, but it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, it's funny. Driving to the airport yesterday, I kind of started thinking back to being on a shuttle bus to the airport in Los Angeles after the game, and these casual football fans are checking their phones and checking in on what happened in the Eagles-Rams game, and they're saying, wow, really sucks for Philly. They lost their quarterback, and that's the end of them, and yada, yada, yada. And then you look at Nick Foles, really subpar performance against the Oakland Raiders.
Right.
Looked terrible when they threw him out there in a meaningless game against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 17, but they wanted him out there to try to boost his confidence, get into
preseason
rhythm.
games for him, kind of, sort of, right?
The Dallas Cowboy game was for sure. They sewed up home field by beating
Against
the Raiders,
Oakland, right.
but he played terrible that night. And then you saw what happened in the postseason. He kind of got into a rhythm in the second half against Atlanta, and I think that Doug Peterson studied those run-pass options that worked really well when he had the 27-2 season with Chip Kelly, really worked well in the second half against the Falcons, built a system around it against the Vikings last week, and you saw it, 141.4 passer rating. That doesn't happen, and that doesn't happen for Nick Foles. It certainly doesn't happen for a backup quarterback against the #1 defense in the NFL.
You couldn't have asked for more from Carson Wentz in that position.
He didn't get lucky.
my goodness.
No. Yeah.
I mean, the flea flicker throw was into a tight window to Torrey Smith. The throw that he made to Alshon Jeffrey on the 37-yard touchdown led him on a rope with a perfectly thrown pass. You're right. I tweeted at halftime with the stats, Carson who? Because he wouldn't have played any better. It's surprising, yes, but I think that this is such a credit to the coaching staff the Eagles have. Doug Peterson played quarterback in the NFL with Brett Favre and Dan Marino, learned from Andy Reid and Don Shula. Frank Reich played quarterback, had the most historic comeback in NFL history before Brady did his thing. And then John DeFilippo played quarterback at a high level, called plays in Houston. They've built a quarterback room with quarterback-centric minds, and I think that that's going to be what organizations copy from the Eagles moving forward, and you're seeing how well that worked out with Foles.
And the talent around him.
Sure.
And they did this ideally with Carson Wentz in mind in the offseason, but they add Jeffrey. I mean, you have a premier tight end in Zach Ertz.
Yep.
They added Jay Ajayi. I mean,
Well, the Smith and Jeffrey thing kind of came as a package deal, right? I mean, like a little bit, and that. I don't know that any of us thought in the offseason, well, they're going to the Super Bowl now, right? You didn't think that. And certainly even on Torrey, had Torrey come back, he was a little bit of a damaged goods piece coming back from San Francisco.
he didn't have a great, he didn't have a very good season.
He had a lot of drop passes, but that catch he made on the flea flicker was one of the best diving catches between two defenders in the end zone you're going to see. So, again, it's guys like Chris Long, won a Super Bowl ring, LeGarrette Blount, Torrey Smith, Malcolm Jenkins. It's not
Corey
just
Graham.
It's
role
not
player.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just what these guys do on the field. It's having that experience with what had been a really young and really inexperienced team going into this season.
Think they're going to win?
I do. And the reason I think they're going to win is
because you're from Philly.
No. Listen, I don't have a dog in this fight. If they win the game, great. If they lose the game, my check still clears on Tuesday. It's no big a deal. But I just look at the matchups, and I look at the matchups up front, offensive line and defensive line, and I think these are the best lines that the Patriots have faced all through the postseason, and I think that Doug Peterson as a head coach is good enough, like we talked about, not to be intimidated by Belichick. And, they run the ball really well with Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount. If they can grind those guys into the ground, no point in saving them now, but you win the time of possession game. 35 minutes, you keep Brady off the field. You have the ball late in the game. You put together some sustained drives. I don't see why you can't shorten the game and win ugly like 24-17 or 27-20.
Right, so something about the Giants that you're running those 10 minutes right off, and they control the line of scrimmage and they control the clock. And let's look at
Jacksonville took
it. I was just about to get to that point. Jacksonville runs the football. They gave them fits, and Philadelphia is exponentially better than Jacksonville is, and they'll stay true to what got them there. Where Jacksonville got away from it.
Jacksonville went
20-10.
conservative in the second half.
Right, and I don't see Philadelphia doing it. I think they're just going to pound, and basically force New England to make plays on defense to stop the run.
And I thought going into the NFC Championship game, and boy was I wrong. I did radio with you. I picked a 12-9 final. I thought that the Eagles matched up better against either the Jaguars or the Patriots than they did Minnesota.
Okay.
For all the reasons we talked about, the lines, running the football, aggressiveness on defense, forcing turnovers. And the Patriots have the 29th ranked defense in the league, right? This team just put up nearly 500 yards in total offense, 38 points on the Vikings. Now, it was at home, and it was Case Keenum, and it's not Tom Brady. But if you hit Brady, if you knock him around, if you make him see ghosts from the pressure up the middle, he's
we've
human
seen
too.
him frustrated.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure.
we've seen him walk off after a third
Sure.
and long, miss and
ripping
get
the
pushed
chin strap
yeah,
off.
Yeah, but that's what you need to see that. You need
sure.
to see that on Sunday
It's
night.
the Giants with Michael Strahan. It's you get that one guy that can come up the middle and
Fletcher
just
Cox.
put him on his butt.
Yeah.
Now we talk about New England taking away one thing against each opponent, making them try to beat them with something else.
Okay.
If you're looking at the Eagles, you've seen them all season. What's the one thing New England's going to try to take away from them?
Take away the running game. I mean, you load 8-9 in the box, and Atlanta did that really, really well. And for 3 quarters, it worked. I mean, Jay Ajayi had something like 11 carries for 54 yards. LeGarrette Blount didn't even replicate that production. But they put 8-9 in the box, and until the Eagles started rolling out these run-pass options, they had the offense pretty much under wraps. And Nick Foles certainly got into a groove late in that game, but I thought that the Vikings were better suited to do that than Atlanta was. I think that you might have a secondary that's better equipped than the Vikings secondary with Malcolm Butler and Devin McCourty this week. But if you put 8-9 guys in the box and you dare Nick Foles to beat you against that secondary, that might be difficult. But if the Eagles run the ball, they stick with it early, they get their blocks to the second level, you should be able to run on this team, right? And I think that's how you win. If the Eagles can run the ball effectively, I think they win the game. If the Patriots take the running game away, it's going to be a lot tougher sledding.
And special teams, we never talk about that. Every single Super Bowl turns on a kick, a punt, a block, a return.
Jake Elliott's money from like 57, but he can't hit a 35-yarder or kick an extra point. So,
that's a deep concern.
Right.
I mean, you talk about our team down in Baltimore. We don't got much, but if the game's on the line and if that kid's kicking the ball, we're probably going to win. I mean, you always feel like that when you're in that kind of a game, but when you have guys that have missed kicks,
right?
That makes everybody sweat.
Just
As I
like
said,
Jake Elliott kicked
Minnesota,
50 yarders.
where they missed a kick 20 years ago, they missed a kick 3 years ago. I mean, they've missed a lot of kicks with Minnesota missing Super Bowls. I'm kind of glad that if they were going to lose, they got their ass kicked last week because I thought that this would be a little bit more somnambulant showing up here, a little bit more funereal showing up in Minnesota, that people here would. Yeah, I mean, they're nice people, and they're going to be nice to a lot nicer than the Eagles fans are going to be. But I thought that if this were Baltimore and we lost a chance to host our own Super Bowl, I mean, especially in a place where they haven't won, like here.
This feels like recipe for disaster, doesn't it?
It just sucks. It sucks for them, I think. And I haven't felt that so much coming in, but I've seen a lot of Patriots gear. We're going to see Eagles fans coming in here, and you worried they're going to, climb poles here that are uncriscoed? Be honest with me.
I think there's going to be a
lot civic concern,
Yeah, I think that it's so cold that the fans might get stuck if they try to climb up
Dude,
the pole.
I promise you, like the clown running on the deck and did the facer in the subway station, I promise you, if they win the Super Bowl Sunday, and I hope they do, you will see some naked, frozen guy's junk on Crisco on a pole
Behave yourself,
somewhere.
Well, here's the problem.
In Eden Prairie.
Here's the problem.
It might be Jim Schwartz, my high school classmate, doing that.
Here's the problem.
He may go Arbutus on it.
He might have the Dundalk guy with him if he invites me to the victory party.
If Brian Dawkins gets in the Hall of Fame on Saturday night and the Eagles win the Super Bowl on Sunday, I'm worried I'm not going to have a city to fly home to.
Wow.
Think about that.
Look,
I mean,
dude,
you just think about how they celebrate back there.
Dude, I had you on 2 weeks ago, and you said you're coming up for the game, and I could have had a press credential, and I've told everybody this. I looked at my wife, I said, I have to leave at noon, I'll get home at 2 in the morning. If they win, they're going to burn the city down. And if they lose,
they're going to burn the city down.
Yeah. So I don't really want to be in that city. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't want to be there. So I didn't go. I don't regret it, but I am Thursday afternoon when these creeps get off the plane here and they line up the mall and hey, I might root against them by Sunday night. I mean, I'm looking to just slink out of here and stay on the Schwartz train.
There you go.
Joey D and all. I want to root for the Eagles,
Corey,
but once they start getting nasty with the Vikings fans here, which is inevitable, right? Oh, come on, you're all looking at me like that I'm making this up.
Like you're going to root for the Patriots. Get out of here. I mean, come on. Really?
The Fly Eagles Fly song, I learned this.
Notice he just moves on.
Right on it.
I learned this 2 weeks ago. In the 80s, they never played that. I was a season ticket holder from 86 to 92.
Yeah.
And I had never.
What the hell happened? How did you let that happen?
We didn't have a team.
There's a lot about him I can't explain.
We didn't have a team. We didn't have a team.
Don't go there.
He was a
Washington
Oilers fan.
Dude.
No.
What What did he say?
Yeah, you don't go there.
Excuse me, can't hear you. Is your mic functioning?
I just know enough trash that this guy talks on Philadelphia and the Eagles. I thought that maybe it was
just
a lesson
Flyers.
to
So
Eagles.
Pika missed this. This is where we're going to extend this. You guys are okay on time? I'm not going to tell the whole story because I bored Luke with it last night, but Pika doesn't know this story. This is a very sort of romantic, wistful week for me here because my first ever Super Bowl was here.
Huh.
And you would bring up the Redskins. So here is the segue for Redskins in 1992, okay? First of all, I was not an Eagles fan. My buddy was. He adopted the Eagles as his team. I was an Oiler fan.
Gotcha.
He had tickets. He said, you want to get in the car at 8:30? I'll pick you up on a Sunday morning. We'll be sitting at the Penrose Diner having pancakes, reading the Philly Inquirer.
Great pancakes at the Penrose.
I'm reading Bill Conlon on Sunday mornings. And and at that time, Pasquarelli, right?
Yep.
Yeah, who was the football writer then? I don't even remember. Who covered the Eagles in the late 80s for the Inquirer? I don't even know. Either way, so Baldinger was on a team. So I did this for years, and in 1992, the Oilers started the year really good. John Stedman, our dear friend, who Chris and I work with, first night we ever met in 1984, John Stedman was in the room. And Steady got me tickets for the Super Bowl in Minnesota. They were $125. I wrote the check. I'm going to come out to Minnesota. I got in my Jeep Wrangler with no top.
No doors?
January 16th, I took my buyout check from the Baltimore Sun. It was the last day I worked there. It was Martin Luther King Day. I picked up my check, put it in the bank, and I got in the car and drove out here. And we stopped at Chicago Stadium and saw Jordan play. I stalked Warren Moon on Friday night. I saw Guns N' Roses play here,
there
too.
You go.
And I saw Gretzky play over here at the IKEA, which is the Met Center, which
nice.
is now the IKEA. So on Thursday night, I stalked Warren Moon. And he was my guy. They put him up on the screen at the Timberwolves game, and I was on the roof, and I saw where he was sitting. And I beelined down, and I got a picture with Warren Moon.
There you go.
Wearing Bill's Zubaz from top to bottom. Luke, how many days in a row did I wear those pants?
5 days straight.
5 days straight. See, he paid attention earlier in the show.
I paid attention.
So I wore Mike Resigliano's Bill's hat and his Zubaz pants all week long because
You're an animal, dude.
I hated the Redskins.
Yes.
That much.
All right.
That much. And it didn't help at all.
How many Hail Marys do I have to do with this? How many times do I have to hear this story to
tell me what the Washington Redskins
never
did,
to bring up Washington again.
Pika, you're the historian here. Tell him why every real Baltimorean should hate the Washington Redskins.
I get it.
No, you don't get it. They tried to keep the team out of Baltimore.
Well, that's one of the reasons. The other reason was that in the infinite wisdom of the broadcasting office of the NFL, they decided
they were the home team.
That market. So the Redskins were the game every week.
Gotcha.
As opposed to,
so if
the
Giants were playing the 49ers and they were really good. That was
you get stuck watching a 3-win Redskin team against the Buffalo Bills.
I'm watching Doug Williams throw the ball at Sun Devil Stadium for 18,000 on a 104-degree day.
Right.
Right.
All right.
So that's
I'll never bring it up again, Nestor. I promise. I promise.
Are you a real Eagles fan? Don't you hate the Redskins too?
I used to.
He's a journalist.
Come on with all that. Your team's in a Super Bowl. Act like Spadaro and have some fun.
I will say this.
Spadaro gets a check from the club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jeffrey Lurie's name doesn't sign my check.
Right.
But I will say this. My father's flying out for the game on Thursday night. He's going to go to the game on Sunday.
And he's rooting against the Eagles, right? Well, just be happy for your father
I am.
Win.
Well, listen.
Just admit you're an Eagles fan.
My grandfather.
Here, look, for you. This is what we do. I'm taking my Howard
I'm not
Bank
putting the hat on.
You
can put the hat on. There you go. Right. It's a much better. Oh, the Kelly Green Baltimore Ravens. Nice. That's a random combination. But anyway, my grandfather was there at Franklin Field when they beat Vince Lombardi in '60 to win the title.
Very
cool. I would like to see, for my father's sake and for him being out here, be able to come full circle.
Be a homer.
Yeah, for a little bit.
All right. I mean, you're in a Super Bowl. No one's judging you.
All right.
No one's unfollowing you on Twitter because you're pulling for the team.
Go ahead.
Well, now, I'd
Sing
actually
fly,
probably,
Eagles fly. Go.
I'd actually probably get more Twitter followers if I were the
I would ask Luke whether it's more fun to win or lose a Super Bowl, but we've never lost a Super Bowl in Baltimore, right?
Listen to you.
Right?
It's
Is
true.
that correct? So we don't really know how that feels.
And
I remember
and
staying
I had
up
one
all night.
playoff run in 7 years in the league, and we lost here in Minnesota in the divisional in 2000 after we beat the Rams.
Of all the godforsaken places to have a Super Bowl, though.
No.
Of all the godforsaken places to be.
Bro,
of course, the Eagles are in a Super Bowl where it's 9 degrees outside and the wind chill of -7.
I have come to terms with the fact that we're broadcasting from the Mall of America all week.
Yeah.
And, Chris, this is my 25th Super Bowl back here at the scene of the crime where it all started in Minnesota, right?
Yep.
And we have unlimited amount of food. I
Shack
need some shaving cream, which is why I haven't shaved. I didn't bring my little sample. I'm in a mall. I can get that. If I need an iced tea, if I need a coffee, whatever I need, I got
the Caribou Coffee's money. Go hit up the Caribou Coffee.
I'm a Royal Farms guy myself.
16 Super Bowls for me, this is still better than Jacksonville, which
Probably.
may have been the worst of all of them, which was the last time the Eagles and Patriots got together in this game.
All right.
Yeah.
Pike, are you going to make a prediction? Because once the stars start coming by, I'm not putting you on the radio anymore.
He can't do that. He has to abstain.
Oh, God.
No, I know.
What is he, calling the game?
I know. He's like Chris Collinsworth.
Kirk Herbstreit, Corso puts on the hat, and Herbstreit's like, I'm calling the game. I can't pick it.
You guys are all old school, man, and act like what we're doing here is rocket science. It's freaking sports, dude.
Well, I want Jim Schwartz to win this and get the ring.
Man.
I don't know at the end of the day if the Patriots just don't find a way to win another one.
Oh, God.
The Eagles win the game 27-24.
I'll go Patriots.
I thought you weren't picking.
He said no. He put me on the spot, so I said I'd do it. I think Patriots 21, Eagles 17.
Okay.
It's hard to pick against Tom Brady if you're not wearing green goggles.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If Jim Schwartz weren't the defensive coordinator of this team, I wouldn't be, but I'm going to have a little faith in Schwartzy.
There you go.
And
they have the personnel to do it, too.
Green.
And I was wrong in both games of the championship, so that's why I'm going the way I am. Because if I'm wrong now, I'll take that.
Take the
I went over 2 in the
conversation full
championship.
circle, like the fly Eagles fly thing. Dude, why'd they bring that back? That sucks. They didn't do that back in the 80s.
I like the 76ers song. That's like Orioles magic.
76.
Yeah,
I don't know that one.
The reason why I know it is my
Sixers.
sister married a Philadelphia sports fan, and at the rehearsal dinner they had a slideshow. And
cool.
they have season tickets to the Sixers.
Oh, nice.
They had a slideshow to the 76ers
They bought them that year
song.
The Sixers were 3-78.
Oh, yeah.
Paying off now, though.
They've been trusting the process a long time.
Oh, no doubt.
There you go.
Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter. Chris Pike is here. He is Blog and Tackle, as well as with the Pro Football Writers Association. And, of course, Matt Lombardo from NJ.com. All of our WNST programming brought to you by Howard Bank. I'm not wearing the hat because I am wearing the green because, Mr. Fly Eagles Fly Guys here with his dad as well. All of our programming brought to you by Howard Bank. We appreciate their sponsorship, as well as Royal Farms, the Maryland Jockey Club, and our friends at D&L Window Tinting, putting the shades on the sun. Dude, if this sun hits the right way here, it really is.
Oh, it's right in my eyes.
It feels like
right
San
now.
Diego.
Yeah,
you close your eyes. It feels like you're in
somebody out there, call
Scottsdale.
Jason and Athena. Tell them we need D&L Window Tinting to come tint like our booth here, or tint the windows of the roof here at the mall. Look, I'm not going to complain about sunshine here. It's 5 degrees outside, but the sun is shining.
Yes, it is.
It's warm right here.
Luke, Chris, Matt, I'm Nestor. We're out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.